there's just a basic talent requirement that some people just don't have. There's only a small percentage of society.
I prepared my kids for any and everything that could possibly happen in life and in sports. That's part of fathering, that's part of parenting, that's part of having a relationship. So he is mentally where he needs to be, physically where he needs to be. We're praying that he gets another opportunity to go with a team. But if he doesn't, the plans have already been put forward to what he's going to do next.
Shilo Sanders went from fan favorite to waived faster than anyone expected. One week he's signing autographs and lighting up social media in a Buccaneers uniform. The next, he's off the roster without ever playing a regular season snap. But what really happened behind the scenes? Was it just a misstep, a misunderstanding, or something deeper, something the NFL doesn't want to admit? At first, rumors started flying. Shilo signed with the Steelers. He's back on a practice squad. It's all just strategy. But as the smoke cleared, the truth was harder to make out than ever, especially with AI-generated TikToks spinning a narrative that never actually happened. And while all this played out online in real time, Coach Prime Deion Sanders was preparing something most people missed, not just Shilo's next move, but his entire backup plan. This isn't just another cut story. It's about how a viral athlete got chewed up by the NFL machine, how fake news twisted the moment, and how a father's plan might just be the thing that saves it all. Because Shilo isn't the only one caught in the middle. Another player, 464 pounds of raw talent, went through something even tougher. And what happened to him? That might be the most heartbreaking part of all.
I like the look of it because it's beautiful. The feel of it, you guys don't get to experience it, but night game like we're getting ready to play, it's a do or miss from this state of the city, whatever that is on the field, and there's a lot of slipping going on, and we just tried to get away from that. We tried to do away with that because our teams are consistently fast football teams. Our kids can run.
Before the NFL dreams, before the headlines and the rumors, Shilo Sanders was already a name fans recognized, not just for his last name, although that definitely helped, but for the energy, athleticism, and personality that made him stand out wherever he went. From day one, nothing was handed to him. He knew getting into the league would be a fight, and while his brother Shadur was building buzz as a quarterback, Shilo had to take a different route, one full of grind, pressure, and raw hustle. One major moment that made headlines early, that 40-yard dash challenge. Coach Prime himself put it out there, if Shilo could crack a certain time, he'd get a car. A real one. No jokes, no gimmicks. Online fans rallied behind it. People watched as Shilo pushed through the pain, training non-stop, chasing that number with everything he had. The car never came, but what did come was something just as valuable attention from scouts and buzz in the media.
Is weak. You can't compete at that level, and that may be the issue with Shilo Sanders, but we'll see if he gets an opportunity. Maybe on the Buccaneers practice squad. I don't think they've slammed the door on him because they really like him as a person.
And eventually, it paid off. All that work earned him a chance with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, we're not talking about a locked-in roster spot. This was preseason hope, wildcard energy, manifest it yourself kind of stuff. But when he got there, he made an impact immediately. Fans were at training camp yelling his name. Kids rushed over with Sharpies and jerseys. TikToks from camp featuring Shilo went viral almost instantly. It wasn't just about the last name anymore, it was about the charisma, the vibe, the feeling that this kid, this safety with swagger, was going to earn his moment. It even looked like people inside the organization were starting to buy the hype. Head coach Todd Bowles had something positive to say. Antoine Winfield Jr. gave props. The players knew his name. That's not normal for a long-shot rookie fresh off waivers. And Tampa welcomed him. This wasn't just a football thing. Shilo tapped into the culture. He was out there creating content, cracking jokes, vibing with the fans, and doing what the Sanders family does best, making an impact larger than football. One clip even showed him going head-to-head with a tight end in practice, bringing that same ferocity that had gotten him here in the first place.
And I prepared my kids for any and everything that could possibly happen in life and in sports. That's part of fathering, that's part of parenting, that's part of having a relationship. So he is mentally where he needs to be,
It was the kind of moment that gets replayed all over social media. Shilo sticking someone, then hitting the too small silly one for the highlight reels. It felt like the door was opening, but behind the scenes, something wasn't sitting quite right. Shilo wasn't guaranteed a spot. He wasn't getting late-game reps. He wasn't climbing the depth chart the way it seemed from the outside. And that moment, the one with the tight end, that may have caused more issues than anyone first realized. Because just as fast as he arrived, Shilo's journey with the Bucs was about to hit a wall. For a moment, it felt like Shilo Sanders' NFL dream was finally finding its footing. But that spark? Gone in an instant. Despite the buzz, the branding, the viral moments, it wasn't enough. Shilo Sanders got released by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And just like that, the hype train screeched to a halt. No dramatic press conference, no injury report, no official explanation. He was waived, and the silence was louder than any headline. At first, fans were stunned. This wasn't just some undrafted scrub fighting to make a name. This was Shilo, son of Deion Sanders, a former SEC athlete, a leader, a guy who lit up cameras and crowd energy like it was nothing. No one expected his name to be on the cut list, but there it was. What made things worse? The incident.
And then you continue to compete, and then look, you become a starting safety. So it's not like the door is closed on Shilo Sanders having a professional career. I don't think that at all.
Just a few practices before the decision, video surfaced of Shilo absolutely lighting up a tight end during a heated drill. The hit looked clean. Aggressive? Sure, but clean. And anyone watching could see the tight end was still blocking well after the whistle. Worse, he hit Shilo with a too small celebration afterward. Now, if you followed football long enough, you know how this goes. Competitors are going to compete. It happens. But the problem? Shilo isn't a Pro Bowler. He's not an all-pro vet with guaranteed contracts to cover aggressive behavior. He's the guy trying to squeeze into a crowded secondary with limited reps and zero margin for mistakes.
Physically where he needs to be. We're praying that he gets another opportunity to go with a team. But if he doesn't, the plans have already been put forward to what he's going to do next. So Shiloh's a man of many talents. I don't know if you guys know he's a man of many talents, and he's going to be straight. All the Sanders are going to be straight.
One wrong moment, even one misunderstood move, can cost you everything. And it did. After that camp skirmish, his name started fading. Fewer social posts, less visibility in clips, no mentions in rotation talks. Then the news. Waived. And not long after, the misinformation spiral began. Because for most fans, it didn't make sense. Why cut someone who's drawing fan engagement, team attention, and good press? So suddenly, theories started popping up. Some thought it was a calculated play to stash him on the practice squad. Others believed another team had already picked him up before anything went public. Some even claimed it was a publicity stunt. But nothing official was said. No statements, no team releases beyond the basics. Just Shilo once again left hanging in the gray area between football dreams and media illusion. What stung more is that no one seemed ready to defend him, not even the Bucs.
And that earned him an opportunity, and he made the most of it when he got that opportunity. That's really the issue. The opportunities are scarce. The jobs are scarce, the opportunities are scarce, and when you get that opportunity, you've got to make the most of it because you may never get that opportunity again.
And when Coach Prime was finally asked about it, his answer made everything even more real. He kept it calm, said he'd prepared his sons for anything in life and in football, that if things didn't work out here, they had backup plans. Shilo was going to be just fine. But in that same calm tone, you could hear it. There was disappointment there, not in his son, but in the process. In the league, in the way talent gets overlooked when it doesn't fit the mold. And just like that, Shilo went from being the most talked about athlete of training camp to back on the market with no team, no deal, and no clue what happens next. But this is where it gets even messier. Because what came next? That's when the line between real news and viral fiction completely fell apart. Shilo Sanders had barely cleared waivers, when suddenly, he was back in the NFL, or so the internet thought. Within hours of the Buccaneers letting him go, posts started popping up everywhere claiming Shilo had already signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Headlines on TikTok screamed, "Breaking, Shilo Sanders signs with the Steelers." The Steelers wasted zero time picking him up. Coach Tomlin wants him on the practice squad right now. It sounded legit. Fast, believable, hopeful. The timing? Too perfect. There was just one problem. None of it was true. The claims didn't come from journalists, not from insider accounts, not even team sources. They came from AI-generated content farms, those robotic TikTok pages designed to crank out hype, half-truths, and whatever sounds clickable. And to most people watching, it felt real. The voice in the video was confident. The graphics looked official. They even threw in unrelated Steelers practice footage to prove it. Combine that with Shiloh's name trending already, and you had thousands of viewers, maybe even millions, completely fooled. Even people in media thought it happened. Streamers congratulated him on air. Fans spammed Deion's social media with "Steelers Nation" comments. People were DMing each other screenshots like it was gospel. And here's the wildest part. The Steelers hadn't even opened waiver reviews when those videos came out, meaning the decision literally couldn't have been made yet. It was logistically impossible, but that didn't stop the algorithm. Because in 2025, perception moves faster than truth. And AI? It doesn't care about accuracy, only attention. In this case, it rewrote a moment in real time. And that's dangerous, because for someone like Shilo, a player already hanging at the edge between celebrity and athlete, the false reality started creating real confusion. Some fans logged off thinking he was fine. Some assumed he'd landed into a better situation, and didn't realize the Steelers rumor was completely fake until days later. Even now, you'll find people in the comments asking, "Wait, I thought he got signed already?" Nope. The Steelers story was 100% fabricated, the kind of viral lie that no one questions until it's too late. And by the time the truth catches up, the damage is already done. But what's even more frustrating is the silence that followed. No official AI warning on those videos, no clarification from the Steelers, no takedowns. Just a false narrative left floating in people's mental timelines. And while it might have been just another 30-second TikTok to some for Shilo, it was stealing his real moment. His real story, replacing it with something cheap and artificial. It's one thing to get cut, that hurts. But to have your next opportunity completely imagined by bots and blasted across the internet, that's something else entirely. And while the internet was busy congratulating Shilo for something he never signed, his father was preparing him for the next chapter, whether football was still in the cards or not. Because as it turns out, Coach Prime already had a plan. While the internet was spiraling and TikTok was busy rewriting reality, Deion Sanders stayed exactly where he always is, calm, focused, and 10 steps ahead. When asked about his son being waived, Coach Prime didn't offer tears or outrage. He didn't complain. He didn't bash the Buccaneers. Instead, he did something more powerful. He gave perspective. "I prepared my kids for anything and everything that could possibly happen," Prime said in a quiet, measured tone. That's part of fathering. That's part of parenting. That's part of having a relationship. To some, it might have sounded like a generic answer, but if you've watched Deion over the years, you know what that meant. This wasn't reaction. This was part of the plan. Shilo was trained for this long before the NFL ever knocked. Coach Prime spoke like a man who saw this coming. Not that exact cut, not that specific team. But the bigger truth, the NFL doesn't owe you anything. And even if you check all the boxes, speed, character, hustle, media clout, you still might get left on the curb with no warning. But that didn't scare Deion. And it didn't rattle Shilo. "We're praying he gets another opportunity with a team," he said. "But if he doesn't, plans have already been put into motion for what he's going to do next." And that's the difference between most players and Shilo Sanders. Shilo isn't just an athlete. He's got a degree. He's done acting, even playing his own father in the hit series BMF. He's shown talent in music, dance, and content creation. He was in a fraternity. He understands branding. He knows how to move through a digital world most NFL rookies don't even think about. And that's not by accident. That's Deion. That's family business. That's long-term strategy. Coach Prime made it clear Shilo doesn't need football to be successful. He's not desperate. He's not lost. And no matter how the headlines twist the moment, the truth is simple. All the Sanders are going to be straight, with or without football. He said it twice, almost like he needed people to hear it. Because here's the deal. Between the haters, the fake narratives, and the instant judgment, people forget what Shilo actually is. A Division I, second-level athlete. A 3-star defensive back. Someone who left a Power 5 program not because he was benched, but because he chose to help build Jackson State with his father. He's been built different, not just physically, but mentally. So while fans were caught up in whether or not Pittsburgh signed him and AI deepfakes were announcing contracts that didn't exist, the Sanders family was already looking ahead. And this is the part most people never see, the part where the spotlight fades, the cameras fall off, and that next move starts unfolding in silence. For Shilo, it's not about giving up on the dream. It's about being ready with or without it. And he's not the only one facing that reality right now. Because there's another name, another player, going through something even more painful. And the story of Desmond Watson? That one might hurt even more. While the Shilo Sanders story was dominating headlines and drowning in internet fiction, another player was spiraling through his own silent storm, and his name, Desmond Watson. You've probably heard the name if you followed SEC football, a monstrous presence. 6'5", 464 pounds. That's not a typo, that's the heaviest recorded player in NFL history at the time of his pro day. And while the media covered his size like a spectacle, the story underneath was anything but amusing. Desmond Watson was a legit baller at the University of Florida, a disruptor on the line. Heavy, yes, but powerful. Strong enough to clog running lanes all by himself. But when the draft rolled around, teams started treating his size like a liability, not a weapon. The Buccaneers took a chance on him on paper. But that's where the chance ended. He never suited up for a practice, never put on pads, never lined up against anyone. From the very beginning, Watson was stuck to conditioning-only activities, which in this case meant walking laps around the field while everyone else played. The heat didn't help, neither did the isolation. And then came the worst moment of all. During a training camp visit, Watson's former high school coach showed up unexpectedly, and when they saw each other, something broke. No yelling, no tears, no dramatic outburst, just silence. You could tell the moment hit Watson like a truck full of bricks. That flood of emotion, seeing the man who once believed in him, now watching from the sideline while his former star walked slow circles in the background. Not playing, not suited, just existing. That wasn't pride. That was pain. And it made one thing brutally clear. What was once Watson's dream was quickly turning into a public display of disappointment. Now, here's the real kicker. This didn't have to happen in the NFL. This is the kind of situation that should have been addressed in college, and that's where the real accountability starts. Watson didn't just show up to Tampa Bay overweight. He played his entire college career at that size. Florida let him take the field week after week, knowing full well that no NFL team was going to allow a 464-pound lineman to continue at the next level. Where was the long-term plan? The conditioning goals? The mentorship? Instead, they let him dominate Saturdays, just to humiliate him on Sundays. One analyst put it bluntly: why draft a player you won't even let play the game he already played at that size in college? Good question. The result? A man sits on the sideline, walking in circles, while social media mocks his weight and teams pretend they didn't know what they signed up for. 30 pounds down and still no real reps. No opportunity to prove if he could play at that size. Just optics. Just excuses. He was never given a real shot. The weight was the story, but watched closely, you start to realize the weight wasn't the problem. The system was. And if you think that's where the story ends, you haven't heard how deep this failure actually goes. Because Florida's not the only school guilty of this. And Watson? He's not alone. Let's be honest, Desmond Watson didn't fail himself. He did what every program told him to do. He showed up, he dominated. He started games in the SEC at a size no other player could even dream of carrying. But the truth is this: some programs will let you be a star on Saturdays even if they know you'll get embarrassed on Sundays. And that's exactly what happened with Florida. Instead of helping Watson prepare for the NFL, they let him develop habits that made it nearly impossible to last once he got there. They gave him the spotlight without the long-term support system. Because as long as he was plugging gaps on Saturday and generating highlights for the SEC network, what did it matter what came next? Sure, he got his shots in college, but college football is supposed to be a bridge, not a trapdoor. And if we're being real, Florida failed him. They let a 400-pound lineman play without a documented plan to reduce that weight in a controlled and sustainable way. Then they handed him off to the NFL like he was just another prospect. Like Tampa Bay wouldn't immediately shut him down and tell him he wasn't field ready? How is someone allowed to play 3 years at an elite program without building toward a pro-level body? How is a head coach with professional ambitions for his players not laying out weekly performance nutrition expectations, weekly weight goals, custom condition plans? There's no excuse. And that brings us to Billy Napier. Now, whether you love him or not, Napier's got a reputation. And it's one that should make scouts raise their eyebrows. Because Florida hasn't exactly been a powerhouse at developing disciplined athletes in recent years, you don't have to squint too hard to find a pattern. Same school, same coaching tree, same outcome. Players landing in the NFL raw, incomplete, not ready. And in Watson's case, never even given a chance to play. Even former players started pointing fingers. Analysts started questioning Tampa Bay for even drafting Watson if their only intention was to sit him because of his weight. Shoving him into laps like a punishment, instead of putting him on the kind of transformation plan high-level athletes need. The question isn't whether Desmond was out of shape. The question is, why did Florida let him graduate like that? This isn't a 17-year-old freshman anymore. He's a grown man put into a system that cared more about game time than lifetime. A man who clearly loves football, but now has to fight back not just for a spot, but for basic respect in the league. If you know he's not conditioned for the NFL, you help him. You don't send him into the league overweight and undersupported just to watch him walk laps until he's waived. That's not development. That's long-term failure disguised as short-term success. And unfortunately, Watson wasn't the only one caught in that system. Back to Shilo Sanders, a player cut loose far too early and with far too little explanation. But maybe, just maybe, that's not such a bad thing. Because as the NFL machine keeps chewing up players and spitting out stories, some are finally starting to break free. Shilo Sanders is no longer with the Buccaneers. Desmond Watson is no longer in cleats, and yet neither story feels finished. Because here's the truth. A cut is not the end. A setback, not a sentence. And sometimes getting dropped by a team is exactly what opens the door you actually needed all along. Let's start with Shilo. Right now, he's officially a free agent completely unrestricted. No practice squad ties. No team contracts trapping him in place. That might sound like trouble, but in today's NFL, it's freedom. He's one phone call away from a real opportunity. And despite what AI TikToks claimed, he has not signed with the Steelers. Not yet, but that doesn't mean other teams aren't watching. Shilo's a rangy, instinctive safety. He's physical. He plays with emotion. And most importantly, he's coachable. Whether it's on special teams, in the box, or as a sub-package DB, there are roles in this league for guys like him. All it takes is one opening, one scout who's paying attention. More than anything, though, he has options. Dion said it best. Shilo is a man of many talents. Acting, content, leadership, music, branding. He's one of the rare athletes who has a real platform before ever scoring a touchdown in the league. If the NFL doesn't want him, cool. He'll build something bigger on his own terms. And that type of power? That's dangerous to the system because Shilo doesn't need the machine to validate him. Now let's talk about Desmond. After being waived, his story could have ended. Most would have assumed it had. But then came a quiet, overlooked update. Watson has reportedly dropped over 30 pounds already since his release. That's not a headline, that's dedication. The hope? That he finds another training program, one more aligned with his frame, somewhere that doesn't put him on walk-only plans or isolate him from teammates. A real development facility that sees Desmond for what he is, a raw, moldable, once-in-a-generation size that just needs a smarter approach. Because no, Desmond wasn't ready for the NFL yet. But clearly, neither was the NFL ready for Desmond. In time, that could change, and if not, like Shilo, he's still young enough, talented enough, driven enough to carve a lane outside the standard football track. Whether that's coaching, fitness leadership, or using his platform to speak to the next generation, his name isn't going away. Both men cut too soon, misunderstood, underused, are still writing their chapters. Their stories didn't end when they hit the waiver wire. They just changed directions. And maybe that's the part most people never see. Because when you're raised by a legend, or built like an immovable object, the game doesn't define your worth. What you do after the game tries to forget you. That's what people really remember. The NFL has always been about more than just talent. It's part opportunity, part politics, part timing, and if you're not in the right place at the right moment, you can go from viral sensation to back-end footnote in the blink of an eye. For Shilo Sanders and Desmond Watson, the world wanted their stories to play out a certain way. But life, especially in football, doesn't follow scripts. Nobody was supposed to care this much when Shilo got waived. But people did, because it wasn't just about a player getting cut, it was about potential being boxed up and tossed aside without warning. It was the frustration of watching fake news outrun the truth, of seeing AI bots flood timelines, while the real story sat quietly in the background. And maybe that's why Coach Prime's words hit different. All the Sanders are going to be straight, with or without football. That's not just a father talking, that's legacy talking, that's structure, that's security. Shilo has backup plans because he was raised to think beyond the field. And in a league that throws players away the moment they don't fit the mold, that's survival. The same goes for Desmond. His size made him a star in college, his struggle made him invisible in the pros. And yet, the grind continues. Behind closed doors, off camera, 30 pounds down. Quiet progress. No clout involved. Is that enough to get him back into the league? Maybe. Maybe not. But here's the truth. The NFL is not the finish line. It's not the peak. And for players like Shilo and Watson, still young, still driven, still hungry, it might not even be the right destination anymore. These two stories expose the system for what it really is: fast, entitled, impatient, and often too blind to see value that doesn't immediately sparkle. But maybe that's okay, because not every door closes quietly. Some slam so loud they wake up the world. So if Shilo never gets another snap, he still wins. If Desmond never throws on pads again, he still made history. And if the NFL never circles back, that says more about them than it ever will about these two. Because success doesn't always wear a jersey. Sometimes it walks away and builds something even stronger. So what do you think? Should another team take a chance on Shilo? Do you believe Desmond Watson deserves a second shot? Or is their next move meant to be off the field where narratives aren't controlled by gatekeepers? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. And if you made it this far, thank you. It means you're one of the few who really want to understand what happens after the cameras turn off. Because that's where the real story starts.